So what we have here is the latest version of Paul Obinna's timeline, which he uses to help explain 8,000 years of African history and culture, all documented history, and it's designed to help us gain a deeper understanding, a more thorough understanding of African people, African history, and African culture, and our relationship and responsibility to our ancestors. So we study the past in the present moment in order for us to use specific knowledge in order to frame where we are today, negotiate the paths of life today, and then use that information, synthesize that information to craft a blueprint for the future, which we will pass on to our children so that they have a clear foundation upon which to build and live their lives, information that they in turn can preserve and pass on to their children, to their descendants, so that as ancestors we understand that we will live through our descendants, we will live through our children. Thus, the information that we inherit from our ancestors is information that's been passed down for multiple generations and will live for all time as long as we remember who they were, who we are, and what our obligations are to future generations. So the timeline deals with the brain, the two hemispheres of the brain, the feminine intuitive faculty, the masculine intellectual capacity, and the need to merge the two. And with that synthesis of both hemispheres of our being, we then can reach back in the past and begin to understand the beginning of our story, beginning with the first people on earth who we know were African. Moving back through time, we see the accomplishments that were created by African people. Here, for example, is Nabta Playa, the oldest archaeological calendar in existence, created 3500 BC, which is physical proof of ancient Africans' understanding of constellations, understanding information which we today take for granted and don't realize that this knowledge began first in the Nile Valley. As we continue moving down the timeline, we see foundational knowledge that was used to transform the consciousness, show the documented history that can be found in the mother of all civilizations in the Nile Valley, and that is Kemet. We have the foundation of Kemet around 3200 BC. We have the concepts and ideas that served as the undergirding knowledge for Kemet for the next 3,000 years. And if we move through the dynastic rulers of Kemet, the creation of the Step Pyramid, the first man-made structure of stone, the creation of the pyramids or Mir at the Giza Plateau, other kings, and what you will notice here are actual images of these rulers of Kemet, and you can still see their African faces, even though noses are missing sometimes, lips are missing other times. You can still tell that you're looking at the faces of African people who established the oldest documented civilization known to mankind. There's a special panel here that documents important female rulers of the 18th dynasty, Amos Nefertari, Hatshepsut, Queen T, African women taking a leadership role in maintaining the power structure in the most powerful nations in human history. And then as we move on down the timeline, it also highlights what Dr. Hilliard talked about and wrote about with the 4 golden ages of ancient Kemet. All 4 golden ages are highlighted, and the last golden age, the 4th golden age, is the 25th dynasty, which happens to correspond to the work that we're currently doing now through the Asa Restoration Project with the excavation, conservation, and restoration of the tombs of South Ossetif. So we're acknowledging Karakamen, Karabashkin, and Nesbanedjet. We also have here a reference to the Sankofa symbol that I found in a 25th dynasty tomb and a 26th dynasty tomb, which leads us to understand that certain aspects of Nile Valley knowledge migrated from the Nile to the Niger and influenced specific aspects of culture and civilization. What else is important is that we have here on the timeline the beginning of European history and culture. 832 is when Homer wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. 753 BC is when Romulus and Remus founded the city of Rome. So right here is the beginning, which is the starting point for European history, culture, philosophy, science, and government. So they can lay claim to something their ancestors never created. So the timeline helps to center us Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, Timbuktu. And the most significant part of this timeline that I really want my audiences to understand is this little period here in blue. From 1441 to 1884, this little area in blue is the period of the European enslavement of African people. They have convinced us for over 400 years that our ancestors have made no contribution, no redeemable contributions to history, culture, religion, science, philosophy, or civilization, and that is a lie. This is Black history. This is Negro history. And our purpose is to restore our historical and cultural memory, reclaim our African heritage, and go all the way back to the beginning of the accomplishments of our ancestors. Reclaim that knowledge, codified it in our consciousness in the present moment so that we can build a future that our children will be proud to inherit. And then the last portion of this timeline that I want to share with you is the significance of ancestral acknowledgement of what I refer to as ancestral intelligence. Ancestral intelligence is the only AI that should matter to African people. That knowledge is available to us, and when you appropriate or when you approach that information with the correct mindset, you then can tap into your genes, become the genius that is required in order to restore our historical and cultural memory and simultaneously restore Ma'at to the planet. That's what this whole timeline is all about. That's our obligation and our responsibility to our ancestors and to our descendants.